If you're planning landscaping, if you're planning any exterior contracting, you must do this one thing before you do anything else. Hey everyone, it's Adam Helfman. Welcome to the podcast. Today we've got Eric Urbain, Director of External Affairs from Misdig 811 on the podcast. And if you don't know what Misdig is, you're going to learn everything about them from A to Z. If you're a contractor, I'm certain you'll know exactly who they are. Eric, welcome to the show.
Mr. Helfman, good to see you, buddy. How are you doing?
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
How do you like the new podcast? It's good, doesn't it?
I love it, man. We're looking good. Podcasts are becoming increasingly popular, so it's good to have you in this space, man.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you know what? Podcasts, busy. People want to listen to this on the road, in their car, on their own time. So it's very beneficial. It's very convenient for people. So let's tell the audience about Misdig. Tell everyone, What is Misdig?
Misdig is Michigan's nonprofit utility notification center. So that just sounds like word salad here. Doesn't mean a whole lot. But so what it is we are the call before you dig place, right? So 54 years ago, we were established by the utility companies to serve as a single point of contact for people doing digging, right? So back in the olden days, if you were going to build a new house or build a new road, it was kind of up to you to hop in a corner phone booth and call the water department and the power company and the gas company and the telecom and work out separate arrangements to find out where their underground assets are. That's kind of a big burden. So back in 1970, some of the utilities got together and formed a single point of contact. We're like a dispatch center, right? So you can contact Misdig 811. We will then take that information about your digging project and send all the utilities in the area so they can handle it and let you know where their buried facilities are.
So let's simplify this for the viewer. Yeah. If I hire a company to put a new deck in my house, they have to put post holes in. And the post holes go 48 inches. And underground utilities, gas lines, electrical lines, plumbing, cable, TV, phones, all that are underground.
Yep.
And because people don't have X-ray vision, somebody needs to tell them where this stuff is.
That's absolutely right. Their underground utility lines are everywhere. So you just need to know where that is, right? It doesn't matter if it's a deck, like you mentioned, heavy construction, even something small, could be a mailbox post, right? Each time you break the surface of the ground, you're putting our vital buried infrastructure at risk. And some of it can be just a matter of inconvenience, but some of it's also a safety concern, right? No one wants to get involved with a power line or a live gas line. So there's a safety component as well as just the integrity of the line. So we're there to keep the people that are digging safe by avoiding the utilities, but also keep the lights on by making sure the utilities aren't damaged during any digging projects.
You know, it's interesting. A lot of times you'll see on the news, house explodes, excavation crew nearby, man electrocuted, things like that are because people didn't call Misdig because they weren't marking the line. So let's go through the process. I'm going to build a deck. I hire a contractor. Contractor says they're starting March 1st. Let's just use that as the start date. Here we are, beginning of February, 30 days before they start. Who's supposed to call Misdig?
That's a great question, Adam, and we get that a lot. So the quick answer to that question is the person putting the shovel in the ground.
Got it.
So whether that be a professional contractor, a do-it-yourselfer, a subcontractor of a general, whoever is on the equipment or whoever's holding the shovel is the person we want to be talking to.
Okay, so the deck company that I hire, they have their crew and they have a guy who comes out and does the post hole digging. They have to call Misdig. Now, if they're starting on, let's say, a Wednesday, when should they call Misdig to give everyone a cushion to make sure that it gets done properly?
I guess the proper answer to that would be the previous Friday, right? So what the Misdig regulations are, and there's actually what we call a quote unquote Misdig law that kind of lays all this out for the state of Michigan, is at least 3 business days before you break ground. We're happy to talk to you up to 2 weeks in advance, but it's a minimum 3 business days. So if I'm working on that Wednesday, as we know, Saturday and Sunday don't count.
Correct.
So we want to hear from that individual on Friday. That gives then, the rest of the day, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, you're ready to start.
So, okay, so let's say 3 days. Obviously, ideally, you maybe give it a week, but minimum 3 days.
Yep.
When Misdig comes out, it's not one person.
Right.
It's a collaboration of different people from different utilities and different contractors who one guy will do the gas, one guy will do the electric and power and things like that, correct?
Absolutely. Probably one of the biggest misconceptions that still exists out there about what we do is that we are the folks that come out and spray paint your yard, right? That still exists. And that's quite all right. You call a service and someone responds.
Correct.
You can just put the two together. You assume that's the Misdig person. But in reality, we have 1,450 members, and members are the water departments and the utility providers. And each one of those handles the information we send to them their own way, right? So some of them hire that work out. So maybe, one locating vendor will mark the gas and telephone, where then your power company, they send their own representatives. The water department sends their own representatives. So you could see as little as one individual, you could see probably half a dozen, really depending on the situation and area you're at.
So someone calls Misdig. They know they're prepping for the deck in the back of the house. When they call Misdig, do they have to say it's a deck in the back of the house, or does Misdig just mark the whole property so people know where everything is?
Yeah, we really like to get pretty specific, or as specific as we can, right? I mean, there's going to be a limit. We're not going to try to identify 1 square foot in the southwest corner. But, if you are digging in the northeast corner of the property, we would like to know that specifically. And the nice thing what we do is we actually use a map and we draw what we call a polygon or a blob or a circle that outlines exactly where I am digging, right? And that can prevent us from sending out that information and requests for locating to utilities when they don't really have anything in conflict. The more narrow of a scope and defined we can get with our work location, it eliminates some of the noise in the system, because not every utility company is going to have something on every job site. So it allows us to kind of just pare down the number of people that are involved.
Makes sense. So let's give people who are not familiar with Misdig. When Misdig gets a call for a deck and they're marking the territories, people who don't really know about this, they see a flag.
Yes.
A colored flag, a green, a yellow, an orange, a red, or whatever the colors are. Those flags are indicative of where the line is. Is that correct?
Yes. So they really represent two things. They represent approximately where this line is running underground, but the color also indicates what type of utility you're dealing with, right? So what you will see out there, and for those of you who don't know, and you've seen that colored flags or spray paint out there and wonder what you're looking at, the red markings represent power lines. The yellow markings represent natural gas lines, blue, water, naturally. Orange is telephone, cable, fiber, communications, like that. Storm drains are marked in green, as well as sewers. So those are what you typically see out there. So not only are they telling you that something's under it, but they're telling you what's under it.
So Eric, obviously it makes common sense for professionals why you got to call Misdig. But a lot of homeowners will get a contractor off of a bulletin board or on the digital online. And I can come and dig your post holes. I'll build your deck. They have no idea about what's underneath.
Right.
How risky is that?
It can be extremely risky, right? I mean, I think a lot of folks out there, they just assume that they're not digging deep enough for it to matter. Or, well, this can't really hurt me. This is just going to be an inconvenience. I have something to do. But digging in, making contact with an energized power line, there is no universe in which that is not dangerous, right?
It's to death.
It absolutely could be. And then the same thing with the gas line. You puncture a gas line, you have blowing gas. Certainly there can be an ignition, fire, possibly explosion. But one of the creepy things about natural gas is how it can also creep underground. For those of you who don't know, little history lesson about natural gas, it's lighter than air. So it wants to just go up
Correct.
into the atmosphere. But if, let's say, you damage a buried line and it gets covered back up, that gas is looking for somewhere to go. So it's going to look for the path of least resistance. And maybe as it's moving along underground, it finds a crack in the home's foundation, or an entry through a sewer line, water line, anything else. It builds up, it reaches a certain level, and when a pilot light then is turned on the furnace or the water heater, that creates an ignition source. So you will see every now and then on the news, if not in Michigan, across the country, a building or house explosion, and that's exactly why that happens. So working around natural gas and power lines extremely dangerous. Someone like me who works from home, just cutting the cable line. Now, all of a sudden, now I'm dead in the water for however long it takes.
People go more crazy about losing their Wi-Fi and their internet, and it is opposed to gas, electric, or anything else.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's one of those things you have to ask yourself, well, I'm taking a chance here. This cable line isn't going to hurt me like a power line will. But when you have to deal with your family for a weekend that doesn't have any TV, internet, or streaming, you might be putting yourself in jeopardy just by having to deal with that. So, yeah, there are consequences to certainly working around buried utilities without knowing where they're at.
So, Eric, when it comes to dealing with Misdig and you're a contractor and you do it on a regular basis, what does it mean when you get a positive response?
Great question, Adam. So positive response is actually kind of a program that we administer at Misdig 811. And it's part of the requirements for all of our utility providers. So we send them what we call a ticket. It's that information that kind of springs them into action. Once they go out and they've marked their line, or they've had a chance to address or review that particular address or job, they're required to post how they've handled that job in our program called Positive Response. So if I have a ticket, let's just say I am a deck contractor and I placed a ticket for a certain job. When my dig start date comes, it's the Wednesday we were talking about, and I'm ready to get out there. If I want to know in advance what the utilities have been up to in my 3 days, I can check Positive Response.
Sure.
And I can get a list that maybe the gas company marked their lines. The power company says they have no conflict near my work area. The water department says they've marked it, and maybe a couple of others like the telecom cable say there's no conflict. So when I get to the job site, I have an expectation on what I should see in terms of the markings. I know I should see one for the gas. I know I should see one for the water. And I also know if I don't see some flags and I have some questions about it, maybe that's simply because there was no conflict in my area that I've described. So it's just that little extra layer of information that can help the excavator kind of navigate their job site safely.
Interesting. Well, that's good to know. Now, you use the word ticket and requests. Mm-hmm. Misdig does the whole state. Give me a feeling for the amount of requests that come in yearly, daily, weekly, monthly. I don't even know how you measure, but tell me the numbers.
Yeah. So we just came off a year in 2024 where we took 1.33 million inbound requests for digging statewide. Wow. Which is a all-time record, which surpassed the 2023 all-time record, which surpassed the year before. So what we are seeing is continued growth. So almost on an annual basis, we're running somewhere between 5 and 10% above the previous record we had set the previous year. So things just keep on expanding and growing, and more work is being done out in the state.
That's really, really interesting. And do you mark or do you track incidents? Like for 1,300,000 requests, did you have 0.1% have an issue, or 1/100%? It's got to be extremely low.
Yeah, it by and large, the numbers are really low. And I think there's a national statistic in 97% of situations in which 811 was contacted, there are no incidents. But we don't necessarily directly receive incident reports. The state of Michigan collects that information, and we will work with them to kind of review it. They will share that information so we know what we have to address on our education and training side maybe. But when things are damaged or incidents occur, they typically we're outside of that process, and that information's handled by the state.
When a contractor calls Misdig, or a homeowner calls Misdig if they're doing their own project, What's the cost to getting all this done?
Nice thing about our service is it is absolutely free to the user.
Well, who pays for it then?
So the utility providers themselves fund our operation.
Okay.
So we're a nonprofit organization, so we just basically charge our utility providers, municipalities, what we call a membership fee that allows us just to operate the center. But by doing so, that also makes it free to use for the excavator or homeowner.
So Eric, let's assume Misty came out and they marked everything, and we got rain, and the contractor had to delay his start.
Sure.
And because was heavy rain, they can't just come back the next day because the ground is still wet. So then they wait another couple days, and then it's the weekend, and it's the following week. Let's say the flags are still there, but sometimes they'll spray paint, or is it only spray paint on a hard surface?
They'll typically use both when they can. But yeah, I mean, the paint fades. It's not designed to be permanent because, again, sometimes you're going to put it on, stonescapes or driveways or roads. So, it's not meant to be permanent. So it can certainly wash away. And when that happens, that is no problem. It's part of a lot of projects. What we ask is for the contractor or homeowner, do-it-yourselfer, to contact us again.
You'll come back up.
Yep. Refer to the confirmation number. We gave you the first time. Just say, hey, listen, the markings have been destroyed. And when you do that, we'll send that out to the utilities in question. And they have actually 24 hours to turn around and remark your site. You don't have to wait 3 days again.
So
you've already done that.
Very quick response.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the way things are in home improvement, a day, 3 days, that's no problem.
Sure.
Obviously, we try to teach people patience, but that's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Now, if there's a mistake, let's say they put the line at 7 feet off the house and the post hole is 9 feet off the house, so there's 2 feet variance. But when the guy's digging, he finds something down there. Is there any guidance or rules or suggestions from mistake? If you're within X amount of feet of a location, be careful, extra careful?
There is absolutely. So it's something we call the caution zone in our lingo. So what this caution zone is, it's essentially a barrier that extends 48 inches out from that set of flags or paint you see. So if I have a set of red markings indicating an electric line, if I'm going to be using power equipment, a power auger, a little mini bobcat, something with an engine, motor, and I have to dig within 4 feet. The requirement for me then, before I can do that, is I actually, through soft excavation, either a shovel or other kind of non-destructive methods, I actually have to dig down and find the line that has been marked and actually put eyeballs on it. Once I do that, now I know exactly where it is to the inch. I can continue on with my power equipment because there's no more mystery of where it is. Because the folks that locate these lines, they do a great job, but they may not be to the inch accurate. There is a little bit of variance for any number of reasons. So we want to make sure folks understand exactly where that line is before getting too close.
Interesting. I never thought of that. How often do you have where the contractor comes back and says, hey, you guys were 4 feet off. You totally missed it. Is there any incentive, or is it just good common courtesy for a contractor to call because, a lot of guys get the job done and they leave.
Sure.
But it would be nice to collect data from you guys.
We do
or
hear
for them.
Yeah, and we do hear from contractors quite often, maybe a little bit frustrated about, something that happened on the job site. And sometimes that can certainly involve the accuracy of those markings. So yeah, that happens. What will happen for excavators, and I think it's something important to know, is if you are working outside of that caution zone, right? If I'm 5 feet away, 6 feet away, outside that 4 feet, I am free to dig at will. Right there, we have certain expectations of the locators that there's a degree of accuracy that they have to take accountability for. So if I'm 10 feet away and I plan on a project, I have no requirement to go and dig up this line. I'm free to do what I need to do. And if I were to find something over here because it was really mismarked or completely someone screwed up, I cannot be held liable for it.
Correct.
I certainly don't want to do that because, again, there's a safety concern. But the liability would be on the party doing that locating and mismarking it, not so much on the excavator.
Okay, well, that makes sense. So let's talk about technology.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with Google Maps, with AI now,
Mm-hmm.
with everything being digitized, and you guys are a nonprofit funded by public utilities,
Yep.
it seems to me that what your service is amazing, and it's a necessary situation that has to be funded. I agree wholeheartedly with it. But bureaucracy gets involved and it's a little bit slower. How are you guys in the race to grasp the best technology, the latest and greatest? Because again, it's going to save lives
Yep.
if there's something that makes it more efficient. And plus, with AI all of a sudden being everywhere, it's got to impact you tremendously. Correct?
Yeah, the AI thing is interesting. It's something we've been talking about for a little bit. We're probably at a point in time, technology-wise, where a lot of this system, our system and those like ours in other states, could be operated using like AI. Chatbots and AI could probably run the operation. We're in no hurry to do that because there are so many rules and exceptions to rules and intricacies. We want to have that human interaction, have a chance to have that conversation with folks. But in terms of technology, we continue to advance. We took, I said, 1.3 million tickets last year. 87% of them, people made themselves on the internet, not through our call center.
So that's a sign of the transition to technology.
That's absolutely
going online and doing it.
Yep.
Is there an app for contractors, or is it just misdig811.org and just go ahead, type the address in and do it from your phone?
So we don't have an app yet. That is one of our IT projects for 2025. By the end of 2025, we will have a robust mobile app that will allow folks to create their tickets from their phone or tablet. If I'm a utility company, I can post back to Positive Response right from there. We'll have videos, maps, aspects of the law, how-tos. Everyone will be able to handle all their Misdig needs from a mobile app, which is something people have been honest about for the past 10 years. And we're finally going to make it happen here in 2025.
Okay. And that makes sense. And again, it's the evolution of Misdig and how things are. Are you anticipating 2025 being another record-breaking year?
2025 is going to be an interesting year. What we have seen in really driving up a lot of these numbers in traffic to Misdig is a lot of grant-funded broadband expansion across the state. So there have been a number of grants, both at the federal side, state side, to expand broadband access to rural areas across the state. And that has created huge amounts of work and requests being put in. There is an even larger grant fund out there for this type of work. But what we anticipate is shovels won't hit the ground till early 2026.
Got it.
So 2025 might be almost a lull year, maybe a little
flatline.
Yeah, like a flat line as opposed to a big spike, only because of the timing of some of this work starting. But who's to say? We could have another record-breaking year. It's hard to kind of always measure the demand of what people will be doing on any given month or year. But
when someone fills out a ticket request for, and again, we're focusing on residential. Do you guys track what type of work it is? Do they have to tell you it's a deck? Do they have to tell you it's a driveway? Do you track what type of work?
Absolutely.
Do you have statistics, or like what was the number one request? Was it a deck? Was it concrete? Was it the landscapers putting pipe pavers or digging for a tree? What is it?
So, because of, again, some of the broadband thing, what we've seen far and away in 2024 was what it's called data/fiber. It's just a classification. So that type of work dominated
fast
the
internet.
state.
Everyone wants fiber optic. We have fiber optic in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
And that's really fast internet until you cut it.
Yeah, until you cut it, and then you have nothing. But I mean, that was almost 50,000 Misdig requests clear of the second place.
Whoa.
So that's how much work that's happening.
Would that be like a Verizon or a Comcast, Xfinity? Those are the companies or their contractors that they hire.
Yeah, their contract. Okay. They're installing for those types of ISPs, but the contractors going out there, creating those work requests for the jobs.
Let me ask: are there any programs that are, while you're doing the markings and all the service tickets, that's also gathering data and helping improve the maps and helping improve. Is that part of this process now?
We're getting there. Right.
Okay.
So
doesn't it make, I mean, it makes common sense, but to get people to do more than one thing at a time, it doesn't seem that it's easier said than done.
Right. I mean, a lot of these locators are overworked anyway. So let's add an additional task onto it. That's challenging. But a lot of the equipment they use, depending on the manufacturer, can actually automatically upload what they are locating into a larger GIS system that they maintain.
Oh, good.
So to kind of update in real time their records, their maps.
So I see a guy in a utility truck, little yellow light, has a vest on, and he's carrying what looks like a metal detector.
Yep.
And as he swings it, you hear the like that, right?
Yep.
And then once he has it, he has the other thing that rolls and sprays the thing, and then he puts the flag in.
Yes.
Pretty much, I could do that.
I mean, it's theoretically, it's pretty much that. Now, what are the locators use? They're not necessarily metal detectors. They're certainly not magic wands or X-ray devices. What they do is they have almost kind of like a transmitter, and they're physically attaching like a radio signal or magnetic signal to the underground line. Oh, and what they're holding will pick up and read that signal, and that's kind of how they're following it along. And there are different levels of accuracy with it, right? And that's why we want people to hand expose how deep that line is, what that line is made out of, and is it under concrete? Are we talking about a driveway? Are there other lines nearby? All that can affect just how accurate they can be. So if you've ever seen a set, of orange flags and paint in your yard, it's pretty close. Whatever, that phone line is going to be pretty close under there, but it may not be exactly.
Right. So you give yourself a error factor of a few feet on each side, probably.
Yeah.
That's why the hand dig within 4 feet makes sense.
That's exactly right. Yeah. You can't just, assume that it's going to be directly here. So I'm going to dig my hole 2 inches away. That's cutting it pretty close.
What about drones? Are they using drones yet to fly over a location and scan it, or is there anything that's like that, or that's too Star Trek scientific right now?
I've had conversations with very large contractors, maybe more of the ones that are rebuilding some of our highway system. Okay. These very large companies doing large projects, and I've heard them incorporating drones into some of their projects and processes. But in terms of just for the utility locating itself, we're not quite there yet, mainly because what we're looking for could be as much as 10, 15 feet underground, and there's a limit to what a drone flying a couple hundred feet in the air is going to be able to find. Maybe if they had some kind of LiDAR technology attached to it, but we're not there with that yet. What I hope to see in the future here is by working with our partners to enhance their digital records. Sure. Theoretically, there's a scenario within the next 10 years. If I'm an equipment operator, let's say just in a backhoe, I would actually have all that utility information uploaded into my system. I'd have an augmented reality where I am seeing in real time through my cab exactly where the gas main is, the telecommunication line. And in some of these instances, there's a proximity alarm. So if my bucket were to get within a foot of a line, an alarm would go off and allow me to kind of stop what I'm doing.
So that sounds like really spaceship, scientific, Star Trek-ish. That, but also could become the reality. The augmented reality is real.
That technology has existed for 15 years.
So are they going to deploy that or start implementing or try that yet? Or is it still on the, we'll get to it?
The biggest challenge we have is the quality of records that's available to input. Right. So we mentioned we have 1,450 underground utility owners tied into Misdig across the state.
Oh, wow.
Just a fraction of them, as we sit here today, have really true high quality GPS GIS data of their entire network that would be that platform would be built upon.
Sure.
So until we're able to have all of our members, all the small utilities, all the city water departments, and everyone tied in. Once everything is digital, high quality, we can then provide that to our excavators as part of our process.
Right.
And that's just another layer of information and data they have to work safely. We're just not there yet.
So Eric, if somebody wants to learn more about Misdig, maybe they're applying for a job to a contractor for Misdig, or they just want to get more familiarized. Are there videos? Is there like on Misdig811.org has a whole plethora of educational videos, right?
They do on our website. So if you go to our website, there's an About Us section, and even there's some educational content below that. And we offer all kinds of different training. Our education team and liaison team that I oversee will come out and meet with you. If you're, a small contractor, large contractor, we'll come out and talk all about the process, address some issues you might be having. We also offer videos and training courses online for free of charge, anything from a 2-hour A to Z certification class to a 15-minute straight to the point. We are happy to work with whether you're a do-it-yourselfer or the largest excavator in the state. We have information relevant to you, and we'll come out and meet with you and provide it, or it's available on our website.
So Eric, for all the homeowners and contractors who are watching the podcast today, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you or get more information about Misdig?
Yeah, the best place for information is just our website, which is misdig811.org. And again, it doesn't matter if you do it yourselfer or a professional excavator, even one of our member utilities. That's the place to go for everything Misdig, and all of our contacts are in there. So whether you're looking for our member services department or education and training, there's contacts in there, and we will reach out.
So if you're a homeowner and you're hiring a contractor, whether it's concrete, excavation, landscaping, a deck, any kind of external construction that's going underground, you have to have your contractor call Misdig. Misdig811.org. Was there a Mr. Dig?
It's funny you bring that. We get that. We get asked a lot. So I'll give the story. When Misdig was founded in 1970, our original name was the South Oakland County Utility Locate and Protection Service. That's a lot.
Right.
But the phone number that Michigan Bell at the time designated toward that service was 313-MISSDIG. That's where our name came from. It was really nothing more fancy than that.
So we call it Misdig from then on.
That's it.
Okay. I'm happy about it.
Me too. I'd had to ramble off that long name every time we talked to somebody.
Remember, before you dig, call Misdig.
Once you